Okay, so you recently went to practice. What stood out to you the most? I know it's been a little while before since you've seen them. What stood out?
Yeah, I think, I want to say that was practice 4 that I was at on Sunday. And what stood out to me was the crispness, the up-tempo nature of the practice. I thought in one-on-ones and 7-on-7s, there was a really nice rhythm between quarterbacks and receivers. To me, maybe the biggest thing that happened in the offseason was Graham Mertz deciding to come back. I mean, just a huge coup, and really what he's everything that's right about college football today. Guy that takes advantage of the transfer portal to get a fresh opportunity, comes in and just immediately immerses himself and ingratiates himself with the fan base. That run against Missouri that ends the season, somehow magically he's got a year left and comes back and takes advantage of it. So I'm excited about him, but I really think the receivers, they still need some guys to step up. We're still waiting for Gene and Mizell to step up. But I think with what they did with DK and Badger and Khalil Jackson being back, I feel like that's going to be a nice improvement this year. Is a little more consistency throwing the ball other than to just Pearsall and to Trey Wilson. So it should spread it around.
Yeah.
I know big shoes to fill with replacing Ricky Pearsall, but I think between those receivers and the tight ends, you're going to see a crispness in the passing game this year that wasn't there, and maybe an intent to push it down the field a little bit more than what we saw last year too.
Were there any flashes from DJ Lagway?
I mean, I think anybody that the best thing that could have happened for DJ Lagway was having Graham Mertz come back. Like a freshman out there would have been disastrous this year, and it would have hurt his growth. And the guy's got a great arm. He's got a big body. There's going to be his time. But right now, I think even he and his family understand that this is the best thing for him. And I'll tell you the thing that I am anxious to see what happens. Do they decide to mess with his release at all? His release to me is a little bit unconventional. I don't know if it's something they address now, something they address in the offseason, but it's just the difference between the way that Mertz throws the football and Lagway is very evident when you're seeing those guys kind of back to back.
That's pretty interesting. And I completely agree with you. And I, over the last year, have talked some with his high school coach, with his parents. And I do think it's so refreshing to see that they fully understand what the situation is with the quarterbacks at Florida and agree with the fact that it is best for his development to come along slowly, because particularly in the NIL era, that's rare, right? Everybody wants to see the field immediately. They're not thinking of the long-term ramifications, but the best possible thing that could happen for Florida was for Graham Mertz to have a great season, DJ Lagway to come along slowly, have a package, but somewhat be used sparingly, right? Like that.
I think it's a good point you make too about DJ and Graham, everybody being on the same page. I feel like the feel overall in the entire locker room is just a lot of continuity. Everybody being on the same page, everybody rowing in the same direction. I think just about everybody on that roster now has been somebody that was recruited by this staff. They've been able to add some veterans to an existing group of players that got some experience last year. It feels different to me, and it feels like there's a lot of optimism. I know there's not a lot of optimism around the outside of the program. I listen to Peter Burns on my show every single day talk about, if things go bad, they're going to go with Lagway. Let me tell you what, they're not going to go bad. And the best thing for Lagway is to get a chance to watch and learn and play a little bit sparingly. But this is Graham Mertz's team. He's going to take this team as far as they're capable of going. And I think they have a chance to win 7 or 8 games this year, even despite the challenging nature of the schedule that everybody's been talking about.
Well, and so this is, you and I texted a little bit before this, and you mentioned this. So you didn't think Florida would win 7 or 8 games last year, right? And so I think that, for people that are watching or listening at home, that carries a lot of weight, because you were incredibly honest about what you thought last year's team was capable of. So, 7 or 8 wins and against this schedule is a massive step in the right direction, right?
It is. And Gator fans don't like to hear me say negative things about the program. I don't like saying negative things about the program, but what I saw last year, it had me concerned. And then some of the errors that kind of raised their heads in that Utah game were things that consistently happened throughout the season. I think they've gotten better on the depth chart. I think I think the players look different. I think that you have more competition at every position that's going to bring out the best. I think they've made changes on the staff that really are going to help impact the season as well. So I talked to Coach Napier for about 20 minutes after practice yesterday. Just the confidence that he has. It's not even braggadocious. It's not even saying anything. It's just he feels very comfortable with his team, likes his team, and there's a confidence that I don't know that was present last year.
Everybody wants to hear about how Mertz looks and how the wide receivers look or the running back room. But honestly, the offensive line improving is probably the biggest factor in that, right? If they're not improved, it doesn't really matter what other weapons you have. So how did they look?
Yeah, they've shuffled some guys around. I still think they need to develop a little bit more depth. I think they feel good about 6 right now. You'd like to probably get to 8 that you feel really comfortable about. But those guys got to be better. They got to be able to run the ball better. Coach Napier's offense, even dating back to Louisiana, was predicated on being able to run the football. This is a very talented group of running backs, even without Montrell Johnson right now. But the offensive line has to be more consistent. They just got exposed last year in a lot of ways, particularly on the edge. Having Austin Barber back healthy would be nice. Damian George bumping inside is good. So I do think that's going to be the one question mark. Florida, I feel good about where they are from a depth standpoint at every other position, but offensive line is certainly still concerning in my opinion.
So defense got a lot of new faces, both players and coaches. So, that means that they're going to have to learn how to communicate with each other. They're all kind of adjusting to the newness of it. How did they look out there?
Yeah, I think the defense looks fast. I think they were flying around. I don't think it's sharing any state secrets that the defense probably get the best of the team periods. And that's kind of what happens early in camp anyway. The defense kind of has a little bit of an advantage, so the offense gets settled in. But I do think that you look back in that secondary now. You go out and get 3 transfers that are veteran guys. You got some young guys that got some experience back there. I feel really good about the defense, and I think you look on the defensive line too. It's a much more talented group that has some depth and some leadership to it now. So I think between what you've added and going out and getting Ron Roberts, I mean that I don't know enough can be stated about what he is in terms of his coaching resume, what he is in terms of guys that he has had coaching under him, including Austin Armstrong back in Louisiana, and the relationship between those two. I think it's going to not only benefit the team, but it's going to help benefit Austin Armstrong's growth, as I still believe he's a star in the making as a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I think that he was the pickup of the offseason. And, I think we have talked in previous interviews that we've done about the fact that, Napier is pretty even keel. He's go with the flow. He's not somebody we've seen get fiery often, which is great. And 90% of the time, but it's that 10% where you need to fire your team up that was sometimes missing. But it seems like Ron Roberts fills that role. And then that's perfect. You have your guy on the sidelines that can kind of chew into these players and accomplish that. It doesn't have to be Napier if there's somebody doing it, right?
Yeah, I think it's a good point because I think I want to say Shane and I, Dan Hicken, were doing something with Coach Spurrier a couple weeks ago. And I think it was Coach that said, you don't have to have the head coach be the fiery one. As long as you have somebody on the staff, to your point, that can get the guy's attention, that can be the guy that holds people a little more accountable with some of the messaging. So I think Ron Roberts can certainly be that guy. But you look around the SEC and college football in general, there are a lot of coaches that have coached under him. There's a lot of coaches that I talk to that speak very highly of Ron Roberts and what they've done for their careers. And so I think the players themselves don't have to look far to see just the legitimacy of who this guy is and what he brings to the team this year.